of course, and you're going to have two excellent presenters who are going to be telling us this up on stage. And they are, of course, the amazing Julie McGee, CMO of Semtech, and the fabulous Marc Pégulu, who is the General Manager of LoRa Business Activities, also at Semtech. So please, raise the roof for these two fabulous individuals. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. I know being after lunch, everybody's got to wake up a little bit, but my name is Julie McGee. Me and my colleague Marc have a really interesting, hopefully, conversation for you today. I'm going to start and then bring Marc up, and we're going to do a couple of conversations between Marc and I. And Marc has spent a lot of time in the LoRaWAN ecosystem. He's been watching the technology from the beginning, and we'll talk about that and also, where we're going and some of the exciting things that are happening in the ecosystem overall. But a little bit about me. I joined Semtech just a few months ago, and I'm new to the LoRa ecosystem. I've worked in technology my entire career and even spent 10 years in wireless technologies, and I was really embarrassed about the fact that when I got a call about the opportunity to join Semtech, that I'd never heard of LoRaWAN. I Googled it and looked it up, and I will say I was so inspired and so amazed about what this technology is capable of and how it's actually being utilized. And as a marketer, I hope to work with many of you over the next year to really help the rest of the world understand all the innovation that's available and all the innovation that LoRaWAN is really driving and bringing about so many solutions to the challenges we face today. So that said, there is a phrase that I'm sure many of you have heard called, let me say that differently, you should live in interesting times. And if you've heard that phrase, there's a rumor that it came from a Chinese curse years ago, although there's no proof of that. And what the point is, if you live in peace times, life is really boring. If you live in interesting times, you're dealing with many, many challenges that you face. And I think when you think about climate change, we read every day there's a headline about droughts. We certainly just heard about fires, for those of you that were in the room. You hear about heat waves and famine and drought. It's pretty scary. It really makes you think, and it leaves people with quite a bit of feeling of dread. But there is another way of looking at it, which I think many of you also look at it, which is thinking about hope and what can you really do with this technology. And I spent many years in my career working for a gentleman named Andy Grove. Some of you may have heard of him. He wrote a little book called Only the Paranoid Survive. And the lessons of that book are you need to be paranoid about what's going on, and then you need to act, and you need to take action aggressively. But he was also an optimist, and an optimist from the perspective of saying technology can find a way. Technology and technologists who approach the world from a perspective of what have we got and how can we apply those tools to the problems that we face. And I think that is what so many of you in this ecosystem have been doing, and those are the things that I find so inspiring, things that speak to my heart and my soul and my brain. Now, before we jump into some of the things, especially that Marc has seen, I want to just take a pause and change the mood and bring us all a little bit of hope. There's a movie out there that some of you might have seen called 2040. It's a documentary. I'm going to show you the trailer. It's very, very short, so I won't bore everybody for a long time. But it really speaks to that hope that you can really find with solutions based on some of the despair that we're all feeling today. Can you play the video for us?
My name is Damon, and this is my daughter, Velvet. Her major concern right now is the elusive art of sleep direction. But soon, she'll have to face a rapidly deteriorating environment.
The ice sheet is now melting faster than the scientists predicted.
I think there's room for a different story, a story that focuses on the solutions to some of these problems. So in 2040, what will the world look like for our daughter if we just embrace the best that already exists?
Instead of having governments that are reacting to disaster, we need governments and businesses that actually take us off in a different direction.
Maybe it's farming, or it can be energy, it can be housing, or empowering girls.
I'd like to see deforestation being stopped.
Oh, that would be so cool. That'd be awesome.
Just be respectful to Earth.
Imagine Velvet. We adopted regenerative practices like phrases, pulling the carbon into the soil and making it healthier.
That's right, yeah.
And we embrace efficient local energy.
Bangladesh has 5 million solar home systems. They have that power in their own hands. This is bringing people together.
But here I am sitting on an aeroplane that is spewing out carbon. You can't help but be a hypocrite because our entire system is built on fossil fuels.
What were you guys thinking?
Well, sometimes we weren't.
The power of innovation, imagination, creativity, to sit within all people.
People want to be working on something that they can see is actually helping to regenerate the world.
Everywhere you look, you will see incredible reasons for hope.
You could feed 10 billion people with the protein from marine permaculture alone. Wow.
Not only are there so many people who want to take part in telling a new story, we have everything we need right now to make it happen. What's your 2040?
I just want the future to be good.
Now, I'm not trying to sell tickets to the movie, but I think the theme of that, in terms of finding solutions that exist today and being hopeful to them, obviously so many of you have found those solutions, and there's so much inspiration with the innovation that exists in this room. And everybody is looking for answers. Everybody's looking for heroes. If you look at all of the stories that exist today in the Marvel Universe franchise, which is a $27 billion franchise where people need help, and they look to superheroes, that $27 billion is bigger than 90 countries' GDP. Looking for heroes, looking for superheroes. And I would say Laura Wan is certainly one of those superheroes. And many of you sitting in this room and the way that you're taking that technology and applying it are really some of the modern day superheroes that exist. Now, I think for those of you that were here for the Dryad presentation and the discussion about profit and what is that financial ROI, my colleague Olivia Seller has a discussion tomorrow, and I will steal his punchline, but I hope you'll still all attend his session tomorrow, where he talks about what is this return. And the punchline, the bottom line is, as you've heard, profit and reducing carbon emissions and doing things that help climate, they can absolutely go hand in hand. And again, stealing a slide from Olivier, he's modeled that even for very modest installations that reduce energy consumption by a mere 5%, and you'll hear examples today, as you probably already have, that go well beyond 5% in their solutions, can bring about a carbon ROI in 20 to 40 days. So really, that decision and that discussion between how do we invest and what do we do is really somewhat moot as far as making those decisions. Now, LoRaWAN, this technology that was built out of this ecosystem, is a really magnificent solution to so many of the problems that we face, and in so many ways is the superhero story that we were talking about, and that as you listen to that trailer, talking optimistically about the answers are here. They are in front of us. We just need to go faster at getting them deployed and getting them out there and actually start activating what the solutions are. And it LoRaWAN doesn't need to be Superman leaping through tall buildings. It actually penetrates buildings. It's better than Superman. It reaches much greater distances and helps bring data and put it in the hands of people that actually need to make decisions about climate solutions. And it has a very important and significant role, just as the IoT does. If you think about the Internet of Things really being that small effect of digitization that can make a difference, and utilizing things like LoRaWAN as opposed to other solutions that consume more power and more energy and might deliver more bandwidth where it really isn't needed, something like LoRaWAN can really be an enabling technology and an accelerator. And the LoRa Alliance and the TTN organization is really bringing all of the superheroes here and bringing you out to think about new ways to apply this technology. So with that, I'd love to bring my colleague Marc up on stage. We're going to chat for a minute or two. Marc can tell you his journey and his history, but I've been so impressed by his being involved with this technology since some of the early days, and I have wondered, and I don't really perfectly have the answer to this question. Marc, when you first saw this technology, what did you really think that it was capable of? And now that you're 10 years in or even more, how are you inspired by really what it's doing today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, hi everyone, and Julie, thanks for the introduction. That's great. So yeah, people often ask me, what was your dream at the beginning of the journey? Well, I have to confess that I don't remember my dreams. So, it's more for me about aspiration and motivation. So when we started, with LoRa, I have to say that it was a little bit about, we are going to create such a great success with technology. We are going to repeat what cellular has done in the past, but we'll do it with LoRa. We are going to get people think out of the box. And I think to some extent, we have reached this stage where LoRa and LoRaWAN, the protocol, are recognized really as a winner for LP1 technology. And we really get, as you can see here, a community of developers and an ecosystem which is helping us to innovate. Now, as you get a little bit older, you get a family, you have seen a little bit more of the world, and those motivations and aspirations are changing a little bit. And it's more about, what do I leave to the future? What do I leave to my kids? And this is really what matters to me now. It's about, all the use cases we spoke about, all the usage of the technology. I would like this really to be recognized and proving that it has an impact, and that's going to leave us with a better world.
Okay, so there have been so many discussions of amazing use cases. I know you see hundreds of them on an annual basis, but and I'm not asking you to pick your favorites, but what are some of them that inspire you and that you want people to think about as they think about how to deploy and use the technology?
Yeah, there are a few of them that come to mind, especially in relationship with what you've seen about the 2040 movie. The first one is about the use case of soil monitoring. So when you're thinking about soil monitoring, obviously you immediately think about farming. You want to make sure that you are optimizing your operational cost, you get good food and all of that. So for me, if I relate to a little bit my own experience for what it matters, we've all been through these 3 years of pandemic, and this is a time where you want to try something new. So we decided with my wife to experiment at home, say, okay, can we grow ourselves something? Can we cultivate with our kids this connection between food and producing the raw material to make food? So that was, a little bit, let's try that. So we started, raised beds and all of that. Okay, first growth was very good. We got good food, we're happy and so on. But then it becomes really hard to sustain that. I mean, it's so hard. It's very, very difficult. So what we realized very quickly is actually you never get the right level of, whether it's water or nutrients for the soils. It's always an experiment, and in the end, it fails because it's too expensive and it takes too much time. So we, obviously, I'm in the field, so being able to monitor, to give you this feedback about how you are doing is a way basically to avoid those mistakes early enough. And then this is encouraging you. Then this is becoming viable and sustainable. So that's one of the use cases, soil monitoring. The second one, it's related to water conservation and water usage in general. So you've all heard about the obvious use case where, all right, especially in California, we are wasting 30%. I've even heard 40% last week from one of the tier 1 OEM in water distribution. So this is lost in distribution networks. But that's not the case I want to talk about you. I want to talk about the access to drinkable water, especially in developing countries. This is a real challenge. People have to walk hours to get water. The problem is there is no incentive today to improve the network, to access to the water. So I heard actually about a customer over there who got a very nice idea. And the idea is basically to use the financial models in order to justify the investment in this infrastructure. And the way that banks are thinking about their money is they want to lend the money to companies, to customers. But depending on the risk, the cost of lending or buying this money is very high. It can be very high. So how do you do that? Well, the way is you need to find a way to de-risk this investment. And how do you de-risk? Well, this is by monitoring. If you get real-time information, if you get objective information about how the water distribution, the water assets are being used, how these are paid, well, the banks see, oh, OK, I get something which is under control. Then, OK, I'm going to lend money to the customers, to utilities, at a rate which makes it viable, makes it really interesting. And that's a way to solve some issues which we thought were impossible to solve before. And I don't know how we're doing about time, but the third one that I have in mind is related actually to the previous presentation, which is about forest. Okay, so forest actually with oceans are the lungs of the planet. We know that. Dryad spoke about the problem of wildfires. So this is a real problem. I mean, even though in California, where we have the giant sequoia, it's part of the natural cycle of those trees. If there is no fire, they cannot develop. So fire is good in some cases. This is and I learned that by going to California. I'm not Californian, as you can hear. And I didn't know that, with fires, it opens the pine cones, and the seeds are being released, and then giant new sequoias can grow. Without fire, it wouldn't happen. Now, what we've seen in the last years is actually the fire intensity is becoming so high that those giant trees cannot survive fires, and that's an issue. So solutions like Dryad, is a way to determine at what point, it makes sense to intervene, and as opposed to let it go. The second element on forest is about deforestation, and I think it was mentioned in the trailer of the 2040. Right? This is important. And I came across a company who is actually using acoustic to detect the illegal deforestation. So pretty smart. They use satellite connectivity. You've heard about several presentations of satellite. They deploy acoustic sensors in the forest and connect to the satellite just to detect these illegal deforestation. And the story of this company is interesting because they used to start that with recycled smartphones. So they use smartphones, use the ability to, with a microphone and a connectivity to deploy that. Well, except that it's not viable because you cannot recharge your smartphone all the time. So they quickly moved to LoRa because of the low power, and they use the same principle, except that they get the battery life, which makes it scalable.
Great. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. Hopefully we have time. One, we have this little proposed acquisition of Sierra Wireless.
Yes.
I know a lot of people are wondering how cellular and LoRa support each other, and I know you've done a lot of thinking on how do we take 1 + 1 and equal something much bigger than 3. So what are some of your ideas, and these are not commitments, but just ideas that you see of the way that we could really help scale LoRa with the support of cellular?
Yeah, totally. So we have been an advocate for a long time that cellular and unlicensed band technology like LoRa are complementary. Well, first is because we truly believe it. The technologies are different and they are serving different use cases. And second is because we think it's a waste of time for the ecosystem to try to compare the technology between one or the other. Honestly, it's a waste of time, right? So, obviously, we want to make this simple for the developer connectivity. We don't want IoT to be complex from a connectivity perspective. And why I believe in this complementarity? I give you an example. So, every country is announcing that by 2030, 34, depending on the countries, only electrical vehicles are going to be sold in the world. Well, the problem is that if every one of us is connecting its car to an EV charger, well, the grid cannot support this. You won't be able to basically charge your car. There is only one way today to do it until we can, find the greatest and newest energy. It's about managing the load, how much you are consuming. So how do you do that? Well, utilities have a role. They have a duty, I would even say. They have access to the home. They obviously have connectivity with electricity meter into the home. And cellular is a perfect technology, actually, to bring this information, which is massive information, to their billing systems and monitoring system. But this is also the perfect area where you can create a gateway with a LoRaWAN network for the home area network. You can connect, like water heater. You can connect HVAC systems. All those devices which are consuming a lot of electricity. And if we are smart, if we are, I would say, even responsible, we will let utilities basically to manage the load, the usage of those highly consuming energy appliances in your home. So an example, it means, if you don't need to have your water heater in the middle of the day at the maximum temperature, well, the utility may decide to reduce it. Knowing the temperature of the water heater, maybe you don't need to heat at all. So there is a lot of opportunity for saving. But this can only happen with a technology like LoRa. It has to be very, very low power, simple to install. It has to be able to go through walls, long range. And then we use cellular as a pipe, as a backhaul to bring all this data to all the engines.
Awesome. OK, we have time for one more.
Oh.
Marc drives the roadmap as well internally, in addition to his role of running the business. So just maybe a little, where are you headed with LoRa and LoRaWAN as far as capabilities and things that people can look forward to of what's next?
So that's a secret.
What?
That's a secret. I can't tell. No, I'm joking. So
things you can share.
I can give you a few pointers. So, probably in relation with what I said before about complexity of connectivity, this is really where we see our mission. And we are going to work a little bit more on the multi-band support. It's a challenge, to develop devices which operate only in one country and not another country and all of that. So there is an opportunity for companies like us to remove completely this barrier so that when you guys are developing solutions, you don't have to worry in which region is going to be installed.
Awesome. OK, well, thank you, guys. We'll wrap up just really quickly. Remember that nothing is too small to make a difference. And you heard that in the movie trailer. I think you all see it and feel it in the ecosystem. I know there was a statistic that came out this week that there's, 2.5 million ants for every human on the planet. And so if we don't do it, the ants are eventually going to have to do it themselves. So keep that in mind as we think about what we can deploy and where we can go and the urgency that we act with. There's nothing that is too small for us to tackle. And Marc, I would just say anything you want to leave the team with?
Well, just a few seconds. So I think, you are all the heroes. So we rely on you guys to solve those critical problems for the future, for, our next generations. So, go ahead.
What I saw, pretty smile, careful heart, you shot me down with Cupid's dart. Oh no, little did I know what you were hiding down below. Love in a fast lane.